Hi, welcome back to uncoverfraud.com. My name is David Malamed, and I am a forensic accountant and fraud investigation expert. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a 23-year-old fraud conviction where the individual was able to flee the scene and flee federal prison when he was supposed to show up. So let's begin. The U.S. Marshals Service is asking for the public's help in identifying a man investigators say strongly looks like one of its most wanted fugitives who has been on the run for, as I said, 23 years. John Ruffo was convicted in the late 1990s of a $350 million bank fraud scheme and sentenced to 17 and a half years in prison. He was given a bond, and that bond was $10 million, but he never showed up to prison to serve his sentence. About $13 million of the money, of the $350 million, was never recovered. In September 2016, a tip came into investigators that Ruffo, who was now 66 years old, had been at a Boston Red Sox and LA Dodgers baseball game in Los Angeles a month earlier, and that he was sitting about 4 rows up from home plate wearing a blue shirt. A video clip from the game confirmed a man fitting Ruffo's description was actually sitting several rows behind home plate. Pretty good seats for a man on the run. Before the sighting in 2016, John hadn't been seen since 1998 at an ATM in New York. The investigators were able to narrow the seat down to Section 1 Dugout Club, row EE, seat 10. But even though they found the seat and identified the person who bought the seats, they haven't been able to identify the man in the blue shirt. Ruffo is now the subject of the ABC News podcast, Have You Seen This Man? After his conviction for his part in what the Marshals Service says is one of the largest bank fraud scams in U.S. history, John Ruffo was given a $10 million bond and ordered to report to a federal prison in New Jersey on November 9, 1998, to begin serving his 210-month service. But guess what? He never showed up. An arrest warrant was issued the next day. U.S. Marshals found that on November 9th, Ruffo drove a rental car to the long-term parking lot at John F. Kennedy International Airport. It's believed he rented the car earlier that day in Manhattan and withdrew money from an ATM on the way to the New York airport. Investigators say if the man in the blue shirt is John Ruffo, he likely is using an alias. John was known as a master manipulator who enjoys fine wine, gambling, and nice hotels. Since Ruffo disappeared, the Marshals Service says it has chased hundreds of leads across the United States and worldwide. While there have been multiple reported sightings of Ruffo, the ATM photograph is the last confirmed sighting. Ruffo is known to be computer savvy. He is reportedly lactose intolerant. Ruffo was known to be a storyteller, someone who liked to stretch the truth and had a desire to impress others. He has been called a master manipulator. Because of his time as a businessman in New York, investigators say that John Ruffo has a variety of international connections. He had traveled to Aruba and showed interest in Italy, where he was known to have traveled in the past. As a result of his strong international ties and a likelihood that Ruffo could be living overseas, wanted posters have been translated into 7 languages. A reward of $25,000 is out there for identifying Ruffo's whereabouts that leads to his arrest. So, hopefully from these pictures that you've seen so far, if you've seen this man, you should be calling the police, the marshals, and letting them know what it is that you've seen. In fact, the Marshals Service said that anyone who's got information should contact the nearest district office or submit a tip through 877 wanted number 2 or the agency's app or website. So let's talk a bit about John Ruffo and the conviction of fraud. John was convicted to 17 and a half years. The bond that he had to post was significant money, at least significant to me and a lot of you out there, $10 million. And he was given the chance to leave and then come back to serve his 210-month sentence. Now, if you were dealing with a fraudster like John Ruffo, would you expect him to come back and serve his 210-month sentence? Was it really a good idea of the judge to allow John Ruffo out of jail if he posted a bond of $10 million? The man took about $350 million from the fraud he committed, and $13 million was never recovered. That was probably enough money for John to live his life without ever being caught again, if he strategized and put money in certain places and was careful. Now, if he did go to this baseball game and sat 4th row, John was not being careful. John was being careless. And what I see fraudsters doing is when they do commit fraud, they usually take lower amounts and don't do it as often. As time goes on, they increase the frequency and the dollar amount that they're taking. At the same time, at the beginning, they're very careful to cover their tracks. But as time goes by, either due to laziness or to company controls, the fraud pops itself out. Now, John Ruff has been hiding for 23 years. Seen in a 1998 ATM picture, seen possibly at the Dodgers game, and now is being manhunted. What fraudsters need to know is, once convicted of a fraud, you're never going to feel safe. You're never going to feel that you can't look behind your shoulder, because at any time, the marshals may show up and arrest you. If John Ruff is out there, he will likely be found. The news, YouTube, Twitter are all talking about the buzz of John Ruff. With that many eyes, that many cameras, that many cell phones out there, it's just a matter of time. Which really brings me to my last point. And before I get into my last point, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video below. Even hit the bell so you know when I put out new videos. But the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of John Ruffo is this individual has demonstrated that even with a fraud conviction, there is the ability to hide, flee, run away, and not pay back through having a sentence or restitution of the funds. John Ruffo is a good example of an individual who was charged with fraud, convicted with jail time, and fled so he didn't have to serve his sentence. In terms of fraudsters out there, this does not send a good message at all. It does not help reduce fraud from occurring. It actually is an incentive to a fraudster that the likelihood of being caught is low, that the likelihood of going to court and being convicted is low. And even if convicted, there's a possibility that you'll be able to flee, hide, and enjoy the money that you've taken without paying the consequences. In terms of being a forensic accountant and fraud investigation expert, I see many people who have to be accountable for their intentional errors, mistakes, or fraud. What I'd like to see happen is more of a message sent so people will know that fraud is not tolerated by our society. It's enough of seeing people duped. It's enough of seeing people lose their money as a result of individuals taking advantage of them. Again, My name is David Malamed, and I am a forensic accountant and fraud investigation expert. Please check out my website, uncoverfraud.com, to see the services we offer and to find out more about me. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like the video below. That's very important to me, so if you've enjoyed it up to this point, please go ahead and check it off. Otherwise, be safe, be good. I look forward to seeing you again. God bless.